Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Now I'd like to bring up something that has been growing over the years and looks like it will continue to have a place in our society for years to come: social media. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2009, more than 68% of Americans had internet access at home, and more than 76% of Americans accessed to the internet at some locations. It's no surprise that of these millions of internet users, many utilize different social media networking sites. Statistics shows that the popular site Facebook has more than 800 million users and over 900 million objects that people interact with, such as pages, groups, event, and community pages. Twitter, the online social networking and microblogging service, has around 200 million users. So, with these millions of users and communities going on online today, many businesses have taken the opportunity to jump on the social media chain. However, how do we know which social media will work right for promoting our business, and how do we utilize them most effectively? Here with me today are Tierney Gallagher and Joey Evans, two social media experts, to discuss the use of Facebook, Twitter, and the new release of Google Plus in terms of promoting business. Now, I'm sure that most of us are familiar with the use of one of these sites for personal endeavors. However, in order to get some background on how this site works, could you tell us a little bit more of them, particularly in terms of business or organizations?
Of course. Well, Facebook enables organizations to create profiles and become active members. Businesses then in turn have started incorporating these strategies into their public relations programming. This includes using the site to help launch products and strengthen their existing brands. Additionally, nonprofit organizations have also used it to publicize and advance their missions and programs.
The social purposes of using Twitter are similar to those of Facebook and other social media. Twitter is a people-based RSS feed that allows users to send and read text-based posts, otherwise known as tweets. This enables participants to keep up with a variety of people and things in an integrated real-time setting. In terms of business, as a microblog, it can be used in interesting ways to put communication with consumers or clients at work.
Okay, so we see differences between the two outlets. But what are the specific advantages of each in terms of promoting your business?
One advantage of Twitter is that consumers elect to follow certain people or organizations. This choice means that they feel the information they get is credible, trustworthy, and useful because it comes from people they know or want to hear from. As far as business, Twitter is most advantageous as an easy way to increase the short-term visibility of things going on with your company and communicate to consumers in a real-time manner. Microblogging for business works as kind of an electronic word of mouth for branding. If you tweet something, followers can see it and not only act upon the information themselves, but they can retweet it to their followers, in turn expanding the message further. Research has shown that microblogging as an online tool for customer word of mouth communications has been effective, and more corporations are using it as part of their overall marketing strategy. Companies such as Comcast have even experimented in using it to promote customer service.
Facebook has a very broad participation base. As you said earlier, they have more than 800 million users, and use of the site is pretty consistent. It has a very open structure and a variety of features that allow members to connect and interact with one another. Users can make profiles and add friends, exchange messages, become fans of different pages, share photos, links, and so much more. The sheer abundance of tools makes it a great asset for any business.
So this advantage show that there are benefits to have this size for your business, but what are some of the limitations?
One of the limiting factors of Twitter is that it only allows users to enter up to 140 characters in text for each tweet. Also, when uploading a twit pic, followers have to follow a link to the picture. It does not show up directly in their feed. This means it only works best for short messages. However, it is a great way for getting something out there and quickly and concisely. Here's some footage from a case study we did on Twitter marketing.
$12.
Thanks. The clip was a great illustration of how Twitter can be an effective way of sending your message out quickly and getting consumers to take actions. But could you tell us some of the limitations of Facebook?
Sure thing, Becky. Unfortunately, only having a Facebook profile will not in itself increase awareness or trigger an influx of participation of consumers with your company. You have to put continual work in on your end as well. This includes creating status updates, sharing photos and links on your wall, and reaching out to draw consumers in other ways. To do this, you need careful planning and research to develop social networking that will work best for you in order to develop good social networking relationships with consumers. I also have a clip that I think can help better demonstrate the relationship of Facebook for businesses and consumers.
Hey, speaking of spooning, 3 Spoons Yogurt has free yogurt for students, September 7th.
Oh man, we gotta hit that up.
I'm there.
What time?
Noon to midnight.
Might be able to work in like 2 or 3 visits.
Yeah, I think
on time span.
I think we can do that. Cool.
Thanks. This was a great example of how Facebook used in business. So now, if done so correctly, using this site is a great way to engage stakeholders through social networking. Enhancing information dissemination and involvement strategy is obviously something that could help business. But how do we do this effectively?
We've actually done some research with local businesses concerning their use of social media. 6 different businesses we had the opportunity to visit all benefited greatly from social media advertising. Not only does it generate interest for users in terms of PR through the site, businesses can also advertise throughout the site for a small fee. On average, the businesses that we were in contact with generated nearly $2,000 a month in sales and only spent an average of $73 for these advertising services. Commercial and print advertising doesn't even compare because of the cost per click pricing that is available online. Large companies can benefit even more by combining this kind of advertising with creating their own page on the sites. Take the Outback Steakhouse in Charlotte, North Carolina, for example. On Facebook alone, they generate over $300 for every $1 they spend on advertising, not to mention the publicity they get by posting for their friends.
That's all very interesting. However, I'd like to introduce something new into the social media mix we're talking about here. There's another site out there that is getting people talking about what the social media world has in store for us, and that is Google+. Launched on June 28 by Google, the social networking and identity service is relatively new to the social media scene. It recently opened up from an invite-only field test, but still all internet users may not be familiar with it. Could you tell us more about Google+ and maybe illustrate to us how it is different than Facebook and Twitter?
Google+, as you said, is another social networking service. It has some of the same features that we have seen before, like the ability to create a profile, post photos and videos, add friends, send instant messaging, play games, and monitor a stream of friends' posts. There are a lot of the same tools that we see in Facebook, but basically it's different in a few ways. Google+ has this thing called Circles, where users can organize contacts into groups for sharing. This system replaces the typical friends list function that we see in other sites like Facebook. Also, Google+ features what's called Hangouts, which are places used to facilitate group video chat. One more thing that sets this site apart is Sparks, a front end to the Google search that allows users to identify topics they might be interested in sharing with others. I believe that Google+ has a lot of potential to be a hit in social media. 2 weeks into its trial phase, CNN reported that it already had more than 10 million users, and after 4 weeks it had 25 million unique visitors. While this pales in comparison to the hundreds of millions of users on Facebook and Twitter, you have to take into account that the site is still growing, and it was just recently released for public use. A survey from Bloomsburg and YouGov estimates that 13% of American adults have joined Google+, and is projected to reach 22% of adults within a year.
But does it have enough number to warrant its use now?
It's too early to tell what level of retention Google+ has, but we can look at the site's numbers and see that while they may not have many users compared to other sites right now, they're likely to grow in the future. Google Plus has a lot of the same features as Facebook and Twitter, but then it has so much more. It has a lot of potential to bring in a range of users who like a variety of features in their social media network. It's safe to say that many users will be drawn to this integration of features on one platform, and more will start using it. It is likely that they will still also keep their Facebook and Twitter accounts.
At the same time, though, I think that some of the features of Google Plus may be disadvantages, especially for businesses. When the site opened, only users over the age of 18 were able to sign up. Now that the site is public, those over 13 can join. However, the limitation during the site's opening means that the majority of the user population is still over 18, which means it might be tougher for businesses to reach consumers under this age. This can be a problem for many whose target audience may be younger. They will have to turn to either using Facebook or Twitter, which both have a very large population portion under the age of 18, in order to reach their consumers more directly. Also, since the site is fairly new, users aren't quite as comfortable with it as they are Facebook or Twitter, which both have been around for years. This could change with time if users like its interface, but it also runs the risk of not catching on because it is not as good as the other sites in the eyes of the users. If it doesn't catch on, there's really no point in trying to publicize your business to the limited few who use it. Additionally, while the Circles feature could be advantageous in terms of security, since it only reveals certain things to chosen friend circles, it limits the whole interconnectedness of social working. It's not everyone sharing with all of their friends, it's everyone sharing to only a few chosen ones of their friends. People can filter information, and it's not quite the same kind of forum as other social networking sites. This can be inhibiting when trying to get consumers to help with word of mouth by passing information on to their friends.
On the contrary, Tony, I think that's one of the features that could really be beneficial for businesses. With Circles, businesses can change the way they use social media to reach consumers and make it more personalized. For example, a business could create certain levels of rewards by putting consumers into different circles based on their loyalty or association with the company. Then they could send out incentives to specific groups. Every customer is not the same, so why should they receive the same generic promotions and ads? With Circles, a business can personalize their contact with customers through social media and provide them with more ownership and good rewards incentives, thus likely to increase loyalty.
Wow, this is very interesting, but let's focus on the application of these sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. What would you say to those out there who are looking to start using social media for their business? How should they get involved? And once they are, where would you suggest they get from there?
Well, really it depends on what type of business you have. However, in general, I would suggest starting out by creating a profile on the sites. You would want to do Twitter and Facebook definitely, and I don't see why you shouldn't create one on Google+. It couldn't hurt if it starts to pick up. But honestly, I would focus more of my effort on getting started with the other two first. A profile isn't just a picture, though. Make sure to include information about your business, helpful links to where consumers can find your products and services, for example. Once you've fleshed out your profile, it's time to start gathering friends and posting or tweeting. A great way to gain friends, fans, and followers is to friend or fan people yourself and ask them to pass the page along to their friends. When you post or tweet, try to make sure it's consistent and balanced. You can't post once every 2 or 3 weeks and hope to make an impact, but at the same time, you also don't want to tweet 60 times an hour because you run the risk of annoying your followers. Make sure what you put out there has a point. Incentives to consumers, updates on big things you're doing as a business, and things like that. And eventually word will spread and you'll catch on, but you do have to work at it. Just make sure you keep up the site. By making it interesting consistently, you can draw in more and more people.
Thank you. That's some great advices. I'm sure we could talk about the advantage of social media networks such as Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus for business much more, but unfortunately we are out of time today. Thanks for joining us today. We are really enjoy your input. If you'd like to read more on this topic, you could check on our website and blog where you could get more information. Thank you for watching today, and we will see you next week.